you can't create video from text. But when I start with video, I have video podcast, YouTube video, audio episode, blog, LinkedIn post, newsletter, ebook, lead magnet, DM, prospect education. I have friends who make $20, $40, $50, $100,000 a month off of their podcast, interviewing guests. YouTube pays them, TikTok pays them, Facebook pays them, and then sponsors. Now, their lives, in my opinion, are complete hell. I interviewed my best friend, my old boss, the guy who does our marketing, a coworker. Are any of these people that have an audience? No, not really. So when you interview people nobody knows, guess who cares? Nobody. The worst thing that you can have as a business owner is a successful podcast and an unsuccessful business. If you're a business owner who's going to launch a podcast, please make sure your business is where you want it to be at this time.
Why do you think a podcast is the most versatile piece of content for businesses?
I don't think I know.
Why? Give me the juice. Why is it the most versatile?
So here's the thing. It's undeniable because it's backed by data. Meaning that you can't create, unless you use AI and it's fake, video from text, right? Like I can put a prompt in and go create a video from this text, but that's going to be fake AI and it's going to look fake because it is fake. It's not real. But when I start with video, right? And that video is longer than 10 minutes. Now it's a podcast, right? So now I have a video podcast, right? From that, I have video podcast, YouTube video, audio episode. I have blog. I have LinkedIn post. I have newsletter. I have ebook. I have lead magnet. I have DM. I have prospect education. I have prospect training. I have client education, client training. I have top of funnel, LinkedIn. I have YouTube shorts. I have Instagram reels. I have TikToks. I mean, what? And then those are just the ideas off the top of my head.
Wow. In the world of like repurpose, there is nothing that's better for repurposing because of the potential for repurposing it into not just video clips, which can go across multiple platforms, but repurposing it into written content, repurposing it into newsletters, repurposing it into anything, really. Like you talked about lead magnets. How do you like manage all that stuff and like come up with a plan for it without like feeling like it's overwhelming?
So let me caveat and say all of everything that I just explained only works if the input is good.
True, right? That.
You can't just make a podcast. I mean, you can. You could just make a podcast and then do everything I just mentioned, repurpose it into 40 different formats, and then release it, and then nobody might care. There might be nobody that actually cares. So what you have to do is you have to do it in a way that gets people to care and the right people to care, right? So that's what's called podcast strategy, right? That's where the intention comes in, right? And when we put in the right intention for the podcast and then design it that way, then we get the output, right, that we want. So that's the caveat. Now, how do you manage all of it? There's many different ways to do that. It comes down to your appetite, meaning your appetite for content production. Do you have a graphic design background, a video background, an audio background, maybe no background in production? Okay, so that means you're going to need probably more help, right, with those manual labor tasks. But I'll just make it clean and simple. There's a podcast producer. That's somebody who specializes in one thing, but also helps you with the other pieces of the puzzle too, right? So most likely there's a podcast producer calling me right now. So there's a podcast producer specializes in one thing. That's Andrew that's calling me. He specializes in audio. Now he hires out people to help with the video, help with the graphic design, right? Then you have a virtual assistant. That's somebody who's an order taker. You form them into a podcast producer, but just know that that's not really their job, right? Their job is to be an assistant, not a producer, right? Then you have a team. You can build this podcast team, right? This is what I use, right? I have a team. Everybody does one job. Audio guy, video guy, graphic designer, show notes writer, uploader, distributor, promoter, right? And then the last option is an agency. So that's what we do at Podcast Principles. We are a podcast production agency. If all of the options I just mentioned sound annoying, then the holy grail, meaning you do nothing other than record and we do everything else, is an agency. But there's a price that comes with that, right?
Of course.
But the value you get, because, price is what you pay and value is the thing that you get. The value on the other side is the thing that you never get more of, which is time. So podcast production is a matter of time expenditure. It has nothing to do with anything else, really. It's just, what do I want to work on and what do I need help for the things that I don't want to work on?
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. So you gave a bunch of different people that have different roles in here. It's almost like there's so much that can potentially go into a podcast, right? And what you need for a podcast. You have a separate person just to write show notes? Walk me through that. Why is that important?
Yeah, so the person that writes the show notes is also the person that distributes the podcast to the platforms, right?
Okay.
So that's your last line of defense, meaning that's, in our business, that person quality controls and writes and distributes.
Okay.
Now, that's not the same everywhere. Sometimes there's just writers. A lot of times the host writes the show notes because they are actually very good at podcast SEO without even knowing that they are. And that's a whole separate rabbit hole. But yes, the person at our agency, his name is Jack. He writes the show notes, and he's written show notes for so many shows that have, or in this case, for example, our biggest show, that's partially why it has so many downloads, is because he knows how to use podcast SEO, include these certain keywords in these titles and show notes that rank you on these podcast platforms, in which that is the mechanism as to how people find the podcast. So anyway, tons of rabbit holes there, but
I want to unpack this a little bit further. And I'm this is totally selfish because I don't feel like I write sufficient show notes. Do people who are listening to the podcast, do they go and read the show notes, or is it the show notes all for really 100% dedicated towards what you need to do with SEO?
Do you read the show notes?
I've never read
other people's shows?
I've never.
So you'll click play on an episode of the title. You see the title and you click play.
Yeah, the title and the thumbnail are what determines it for me, basically.
Okay. Do you ever look at the timestamps?
I don't, but my guys do a really good job with the timestamps.
I would say that people, in my opinion, act as if the same way you act. I don't think they really read the show notes. I think they kind of use it sometimes as a tool to see what's in the episode.
There's a few podcasts that I listen to. So Rogan and Modern Wisdom and Diary of a CEO and Theo Vaughn or Flagrant with Schultz and them. But what determines which episode that I listen to is determined by the guest. But what happens is sometimes I will go and I will look at who the guest is, and I don't really recognize who the guests are. So typically then what I'll do is I will read a little bit of the show notes to figure out who the guest is and determine whether I want to listen to the podcast based on that.
Yes. And so what you just said does not apply to anybody who's listening to this. So let's just make that very clear. Any show that you listen to that is a famous podcast does not need to do anything that I'm going to be talking about. So, because they're already famous. So you're not, right? I'm not. None of our clients are. They're not trying to be.
Right.
So when you're not famous and you're not trying to be famous, what you have to do is try to get a very specific person who's searching a very specific thing to find your show. And that's how the show notes work. Here's how it is. This is called search engine optimization. This has been around for a long time. Neil Patel, Rand Fishkin, who I've interviewed before. This is a whole entire world that mostly exists in Google, but now has expanded. Now, this happens with podcasts because podcasts appear in search results, and also people search on podcast platforms like Spotify and Apple for specific topics, right? Also, people use the rankings that are on Apple Podcasts specifically to find shows. They'll actually go and look careers, and then within careers, you get all these shows about careers, right? And now that's a pretty antiquated way, but we're living in the 1800s when it comes to podcasting, so that's just how it is. But what you're doing with podcast SEO is there's two things happening. And this has to do with show notes and titles and the title name of the show and really everything, the packaging for the podcast. Two things. You're appearing in a search result. That's a result of podcast SEO. That search could be anywhere. That could be Google, Apple, Spotify. Number two, which is somewhat different, is you're ranking on an individual platform next to other shows in your category. So SEO, podcast SEO tries to accomplish both of those goals. And so that's why it's not easy to do. That's why people who are really, really good at it charge a lot of money. Now because for example, my friends, it's called Get More Listeners, right? That's their business. Anthony and Tig, they're two guys who do this. They've been doing this for a long time. There's a reason why they charge a lot of money, because they understand how these algorithms work. We do it at Podcast Principles too. So it's not that you have to spend a lot of money. It's that it's a skill set. And you can either pay somebody to learn that skill set, or you can try to learn it on your own. But those are the two goals that you want to achieve.
And now continuing along the line with the selfish questions, is the YouTube description and the show notes identical, or do you do something different for those two things?
YouTube description doesn't change much as long as the timestamps are accurate, right? Because the video and audio versions might be different. But the YouTube description has really no bearing on how that episode performs on YouTube.
Okay, but I'm saying, do you copy and paste your show notes into the YouTube description? Is that how it works, or no?
Yeah, for my show, I do, because the lead magnet is the same and everything's the same.
Okay.
But I'm optimizing first for audio, and then I paste it over to YouTube. So meaning it's not helping me or hurting me on YouTube, but it is either helping me or hurting me on the audio platforms.
Do you put your video on Spotify and the Apple Podcasts or the other platforms, or do you just do audio and just the video on YouTube? How do you handle that?
Yeah, so I don't put my video on Spotify and Apple because I started this a long time ago, and I actually use a platform that doesn't actually integrate that well with Spotify video. And so I started this show this is the RSS feed I use, which is how podcasts communicate, right? That's how you get the podcast from the file to on Spotify. It's a thing called an RSS feed. That mine has been around for 7 years now, So if I wanted to do that, I would have to switch my distribution platform, and it would be kind of technical. But for new shows, meaning like new podcasts that come about, we have clients that make YouTube videos, and we literally take the audio from that YouTube video, have an editor just mix it, right? Just so it sounds good when you're listening in your car. And then we literally put that video, we upload the video to the audio platforms, right? With the audio mixed and edited. And I'd say for probably 90% of shows now, that's really how you should do it.
Okay.
But there are downsides, so we could go into that.
Yo, I just wanted to take a very quick break in the action here because I just realized something crazy. 85% of the people that are watching our videos on YouTube are not subscribed. This is what happens when you actually get smart people to look into your analytics. So if you are enjoying this content and you want more practical advice and tips on how to grow your brand and your business with video, please hit the subscribe button. I do truly appreciate it. And let's get back into the interview. Ooh, okay. So, all right. I had my team put it to YouTube, and then I was putting it to Spotify for creators. Like, I was uploading with the video and everything, but I just recently started doing it through Substack. Basically, Substack acts as like the primary platform that pushes it out to Apple Podcasts and to Spotify. I'm starting to like warm up to Substack a little bit. I feel like it might be like a really high potential platform in the future for content distribution, because your podcast, your newsletter, you can have paid community all inside one platform. So I'm kind of feeling that a little bit. Maybe you can add some of your thoughts in here.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that as a strategy for somebody like me who's like relatively, I mean, I think I'm like 17 episodes deep on this podcast right now. Do you feel like that's a good strategy for me as far as distribution goes?
I'd say I don't know, because I don't know how their distribution works or if it's good or not or
Right.
what features or benefits they provide. Um, if it works for you, it works. I don't get into what distribution is better or worse. I just use the ones that I like to use for the reasons that I like to use them, but there's just so many. The reason why Substack does that, if you really want to know, is not because they love podcasting and they want you to rely on them. So that's why it's costs almost nothing for them to be to enable you to distribute your RSS feed through them. But then it's stickier. It keeps you on their platform, right? So that's selfishly why they do that. It's not because they want to support, and maybe they'll come at me and be like, no, we do. We actually really love podcasters. And that's fine. That's great. I hope that's true. The reason why I use my specific distribution that I use, which is Captivate.fm, I've been using them. I'm a longtime customer. I've met them in person. They're great people. They've always supported us. Have 20, 30 shows on there, right? The reason why is because I have not found better analytics on other distribution platforms than I have on Captivate. And so that's what I value. So it's all about what you value, right? If you value the ease of going to Substack and it like automatically transcribes your podcast and then makes it really easy for you to make a Substack post about it, then use that,
Mm,
If you use Spotify for creators, do you think their Apple data that they give you is going to be that accurate? No, because they don't care about that. You're not going to get the data from the other 25 plus platforms. I want that. So I use Captivate, but Captivate's paid. Spotify creators is free, right? So this is a what works for you question. And if it works for you, then I'm good with it.
yeah, cool. Cool. I like it. I like it. All right, let's get away from the technical a little bit because I don't want to go I don't want to bring
Yeah,
people.
we just lost everybody in those first 15 minutes.
I know. Fuck.
Now you're good. No, if you actually listen to this stuff, it's really good. It's just, you got to take it and apply it.
If you're a business, you see the value in a podcast, how do you get started? Because I feel like people rush into it. They end up putting out less than 10 episodes, which is like something like 90% of podcasts like fizzle out before 10 episodes. Is it like some crazy stat like that? How do you like plan right to make this thing like a long-term foundation of your content?
So the worst thing that you can have as a business owner is a successful podcast and an unsuccessful business. Now, what's even worse than that is an unsuccessful podcast and an unsuccessful business, right? So I would love for you to start podcasting when you have what you would deem as a successful business, right? What I would deem as a successful business, and me and you both, Danny, have gotten some of the same coaching over the years, so we probably both agree with this, but it's predictable revenue. Like, where your next client's coming from. You're not struggling for leads, right? So that's what I would say. If you're a business owner who's going to launch a podcast, please make sure your business is where you want it to be at this time, right? And then that lets the pressure of the business, you can lay off that pressure is eliminated. And now you can focus your time and energy on content. And a podcast, it can be that content, right? So it's more of a situation you're in rather than a plan that you need. So just make sure because this has happened a lot of times. Prospects will notice, they get to the end of the call with me and we haven't really talked about the podcast. Well, because who's in charge of the podcast? You. Who's the rainmaker in the business? You. Who's the personal brand? You. Who's the one paying everybody? You, right? So then why are we talking about the podcast? We should talk about you. So the podcast is a reflection of you and your business. It's just a mirror, right? So when it comes to the strategy side of podcasting, well, we need a strategy that matches you, right? Now, I'm not saying that it's your place to dump your trauma bond with your audience and here's how all the crap that happened to me this week and that's my podcast. I'm saying that how good it is a reflection of how much time, energy, and focus that you could put into it. And then the advice that your audience gets is a reflection of that. And then their feedback about that advice is how successful a podcast is, right? So wrap that up. Strategy, podcast strategy. Start with what you're going to be able to do on a weekly basis. Minimum 2 times a month, but try to do weekly. That means format. Is this co-hosted? Do I want really do I want Danny to do I want to go in with Danny and he does short form video and I do podcast and we do a podcast together, right? Meaning that, doing it solo stresses me out. Or maybe do I want guests where I don't have to be the guy that's that's talking all the time, right? And so then maybe I'm a guest-based show is good. Now, how do you test all this? You fucking test it. You get your buddy who's a vendor, he's a SEO specialist and you're a ghostwriter, and you guys get on together and do an episode about whatever. Then you interview somebody who you know. You do that. Then you do a solo video talking to the camera. And you do those 3, and then you go, which one would I love to do every week? And there's your podcast.
I was telling you that I just did a solo episode, and I haven't done a solo podcast in maybe like 4 years. I asked my editors to do it completely unedited, uncut. I've been getting like some really good responses on it. I just put it out. A solo podcast is hard, but I also think that it's probably the best way to go, because one of the things that I see about people with podcasts, business people that do interview podcasts meeting, right, is they are constantly showcasing everybody else's business but theirs. Have you seen that strategy where like people are doing interviews and have it backfire on them?
Oh, yeah, of course. Well, here's the thing. They do interviews and they go, hey, we did all these interviews. It's not working. I'm like, okay, who did you interview? Well, I interviewed my best friend. I interviewed my old boss. I interviewed the guy who does our marketing. I interviewed a coworker, and I interviewed a client. Okay, so are any of these people that have an audience or people know who they are? Oh, well, no, not really. Okay, so when you interview people nobody knows, guess who cares? Nobody. Nobody cares because nobody knows who they are. Nobody knows why they should listen to them, right? So it's not a matter of our guest-based podcasts, do they not work? They do work if you know why you're having guests on, right? If you just go and interview random people, then that's what you get. You get a ton of random interviews. There's no real strategy. Now, I have friends who make $20, $40, $50, $100,000 a month off of their podcast, interviewing guests. I'm talking YouTube pays them, TikTok pays them, Facebook pays them, and then sponsors, right? Now, their lives, in my opinion, are complete hell because I don't want to work 16 hours a day. I don't want to not have a life. I don't want to be reliant on getting the next guest who has more clout than the last guest and then asking them questions that people on the internet want to hear right now because it's hot. I just don't want that life, right? Now, it works, just not for me, right? So, yes, guest-based podcasts work very well, actually really well, right? But, if you look at Stephen Bartlett's profit and loss, and then look at one of our profit and loss, and then you look at net profit percentage, we might have more net profit than Stephen Bartlett's podcast, right? Percentage wise. So it's not a matter of like better or worse. It's just pro con. It comes back down to what my answer to everything, which is like, what do you want out of it? And then we'll figure out what the podcast should be. And if showcasing other people doesn't get you what you need to keep going, then maybe don't do that.
What is the strategy for an interview podcast that is more niche and is more designed to drive client revenue as opposed to just drive massive amounts of views?
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to design it for a business purpose and you do want to interview people, I would run, a version of our system. I would have only guests that are clients. I would have 1/3 of the content be that. I would have 1/3 of it be solo. And then I'd have 1/3 of it be co-hosted. And that's how I would run it. I don't now, okay, that's how we would do it. There is a world where you can do account-based podcasting where Danny interviews 50 people a year that aren't clients. 10 of them become clients by the end of the year, and then that pays for the podcast and then some. Okay, I'm not opposed to that. I don't care. It's not illegal. So what's wrong with that? Now, I don't do it, but it doesn't mean you can't do it. So those are your options, really, if for a guest show, unless you're doing it as like a brand play and you have here's the last version. You have an incredible network. You've worked for 50, 60 years in this industry, You have high level people, right? And you are now going to take this incredible network and you're going to interview people. All these people that really are well-known people and incredible, and that's more for like brand/passion project, right? But it's still going to cost you money and you're probably not going to make any back, right? But people write books that nobody reads and spend $50,000 on that, so kind of a toss-up. So there's ways to do it. It's just, again, which way does that make sense for you?
Yeah, totally makes sense. Let's think about this for a second, because
Mhm.
I feel like I'm kind of in multiple lanes here. So I'm doing mainly interview podcasts, and I'm bringing in people that I see as experts in different areas, and so that I can expose my audience to these new experts. So I'm helping, obviously, to get these experts visibility, but at the same time, I'm also going to get in front of your audience, because if you share this podcast out to your audience, now I'm introducing myself to that audience too, right? When you are the person that is running an interview show, and like that is the play, how do you need to act, or is there any kind of actions that you need to do inside of that podcast that make it mutually beneficial for you and that person who is your guest? Like, you could take advantage of their audience and start to build some connection to that audience too.
No, not
You
really.
can't, there's nothing you can do.
No, there's things you can do, but you can't expect them to work. So
Okay.
what you're saying is, hey, man, I want you to be on my podcast, right? And I'm like, okay, sure, Danny. Then I'm on your podcast and you're like, hey, man, can you like expose this when you were on my show to your entire audience? And I'm like, no. Now, after that point, there's nothing you can do.
Right.
My reason for not doing it, it doesn't matter. It could be because I didn't like how you edited the clips. It could be because I have my next 3 months of content planned out and that's going to mess that up. It could be that my Instagram has to just be a certain way and these clips just don't work for that. It could be that I don't want to promote you. It could be that you asked me to be a guest on your show and now you want something from me. My time is enough, right? So I'm just playing devil's advocate on this.
Sure.
So what I did, now that's the devil's advocate, which is not that positive, to be honest. And of course, I'm going to share this. Of course, this is a partnership between me and you, right? That's what a great interview is. Really, it's a partnership. Now, yes, there are things you can do, though. Number one, frame it as they're the talent. So frame it as we have a high-level podcast production happening here, and we've selected you to be the talent. You're the actor. You don't own the show. You didn't write the show. You don't produce the show. You're an actor, a hired actor that is going to be the talent on this podcast, right? Now, here's what we need from you. If you'd like to be the talent, which is free of charge, right? So you're getting a lot of value, right, that we are providing. Here's what we need you to do. We need you to promote this episode on these channels. We need you to promote these clips. We need you to put out this teaser. We need you to post on this day. But here's the thing we're going to do. We're going to customize all of this for you. So you tell us what the clip should look like. You tell us what colors you want the teaser to be. You tell us when you can actually promote it and when it fits in your schedule, right? So you work with the interviewee or the guest as a partnership with them. And that's how you get them to expose you to their audience, is when it's done as a partnership. There's a reason why when I started a podcast that nobody knew, right? Interviewing people that nobody knows, there's a reason why the clips got hundreds of thousands of views. It's because I had a partnership with that guest and they trusted me on what I was asking them, and they trusted themselves on what they were going to answer. And then I created a clip that anybody could watch and either agree with or disagree with. And then I sent it to them and said, here's the clip. Are you ready for us to post this together? Right. And then sometimes, no, they weren't. Sometimes they didn't want that opinion out there for 100,000 people to see. But when I went to them and said, here's the title and thumbnail combination that I'm going to use for your episode, and they said no to that, then I said, okay, but would you rather have 1,000 views or 10? And they were like, well, you're right. Run it. And then I run it. And then it does get 500 views. Okay, nice. So it's how I look at it is really that partnership. You're not expecting the guest to do anything. But if you approach it like a partnership, then they'll approach it like a partnership. And now we're working together. For example, I got caught up with clips. I actually didn't have enough. I have a full-time editor who literally could not even make my clips, right? So for our episode, Danny, I didn't promote that episode yet because I want to have the clips from our episode and I want you to feel good about them and me feel good about them. And on the same day we post them, right?
Right.
And it's a partnership, right? So I'm not using you because you have followers and I want no, we're doing this together. So that's how I look at it. And that's how you could look at it. Don't expect, but have that intention, and most people respond to that positively.
Yeah, and then there is some level of like set that expectation with somebody prior to them even agreeing to be on the show.
Oh, yes. So we do this we've had guests that are not some of my guests, but mostly clients' guests that have 3-4 million subscribers on YouTube, right? Maybe 250,000 followers on Instagram. Before we even record, we go, hey, what's it going to take for us to do a collab post? We know it's going to do 50, 100,000 views on Instagram. Then they let us know. Oh, just send me the clip. We don't care what it is. We'll promote you guys. We don't, because, right? They probably have been friends for 15 years, right?
Right.
It would be weird for them not to do it. And guess what? When we post that, and if you want to look up, his name's Brian Sims. Look up Brian Sims. He was a congressman. Look up his Instagram account. Then you'll see clips from Jim Fielding, our client, their episode that have 20, 30, 40, 50,000 views because we set that collab post up way before we even hit record.
I like the way that you phrased it though. What do we need to do to make you want to promote this episode? Like, what do we need to do to make sure that you share one of those clips and tag us in and feel good about it? Right.
Yes.
I really like that, man.
Let's go to work.
Yeah, I haven't done that with my guests, really. All my guests have been gracious enough to share the episode, and some of them have wanted to tag me in some of the posts that they've put on their platforms and everything like that. But I haven't been setting that expectation and doing a good job of, again, like saying to them beforehand, what do we need to produce that you would feel good about sharing with your audience? Because that's the whole idea, right?
Yeah,
so that's cool.
And an easy way to do it is I used to have a guest form, and the guest form, right, would say, are you able to promote these episodes on your social media account? Yes. If yes, then what forms of media are you open to promoting on your social media? Images and videos. Okay, so they click image videos. Great. Now, when we give you these images and videos, would you like to approve them before we post them and before you post them? Yes. All of this is beforehand. So then when you get to that point, you go, hey, I got your form. It says yes, 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 no to this, but yes to this. They already decided that they were going to do that. And when people decide, then they typically follow through with it because they made a contract with you, essentially.
Got you. Where do you think podcasting is going in the next couple years? Where do you think it's headed that it hasn't been doing in the past?
Yeah, so I'd say full feature film production level for big podcasts. When we find that influencers, get into podcasting, they typically treat it like a TV movie production, right? So the production is moving from what's happening in the film world into the podcasting world with colorists and producers and directors. And you've seen this with Stephen Bartlett and Chris Williamson and things like that. So I'm seeing that, which I think is really interesting. AI podcasts, not fucking happening. You've never listened to one. You're probably not going to listen to one. Just saying, right? It's not, we thought it would be cool. It's like all this AI shit, right? And then you realize, wait, AI is actually just acts like AI and humans act like humans, right? So if you want humans to be your audience, just make a human podcast. Now, if you want AI to be your audience, make an AI podcast. And then number 3, which is an interesting thing that people don't think about, is if you have video for your podcast, either on Spotify or on YouTube, I would bet 75% of the people watching are watching it on a TV. So do with that what you wish.
Very interesting. I wouldn't have thought that. I would think that more people would be watching it on mobile, but maybe if it's because it's long form.
And why would you make a movie-like production style
if people aren't
so
going to
people
watch it
can
on the
watch
big
it on a
screen?
TV? Yes.
All comes around. Okay, cool.
And live. Okay, number 4 though, live podcasts. Right? Do an in-person podcast and have a physical audience. Anyway, I think that's super, super underrated. Very underrated.
Very interesting. Okay, cool. Big podcasts. Who do you like? Do you listen to any of them?
Yeah, of course. Classics. I mean, I'm here because of Rogan. Wouldn't be here without him. So just letting you guys know. I know it's cliche. I know everybody says it. I've been watching him since 2014. So do the math on that. Tim Ferriss, huge. Like it's like Rogan, but for business and habits and lifestyle. So I love that. The Game, of course, Hormozy. His free content is great. I don't need the paid stuff. I don't need the course. I don't need, the $6,000 book. The free stuff is good enough.
He gives enough away.
Give you one that you probably wouldn't know is Two Bobs. It's called The Art of Creative Entrepreneurship. 2 guys. One of them does mergers and acquisitions. The other one does sales. And then they talk about all of these things when you have a creative agency. Your employee wants equity. Your best client leaves, how to manage referrals. Do you charge every client a different price because they have a different service, or everybody the same price? So Two Bobs, that's a great one with guys who actually have been there, done that. And then if you want a good cultural podcast that you could have a laugh in the car with your wife or your significant other or your kids, it's called Your Favorite Band Sucks. And they just take your favorite band and they just roast them for like 30 minutes about how bad they are. So there's a few fun ones for you.
Oh, that's cool. What about like ones that are not as well known? Do you listen to like small, more independent podcasts?
Yeah, I want to say yes. Oh, yes. The ones that I listen to. So I have an entertainment company. We do weddings, wedding entertainment. So DJ, MC, photo booth, photography, videography. There are these DJ podcasts, and most of the time they don't last, right? But just because DJs, right? That's the nature of the job. It's kind of here and then it's there. It's gone here today, gone tomorrow. But I listen to a lot of DJ podcasts. One that would be interesting, I think, to everybody is called Club Killers. If you look up Club Killers, Nick Spinelli. This guy, Nick Spinelli, is one of the top wedding DJs in the U.S., probably in the world. And he explains how he created this wedding DJ company, basically from scratch. He does work for a company, but he built a brand online by going viral. With his wedding DJ sets, right? So that's one that most people, Club Killers, if you're not a club DJ, you're probably never going to watch it, but it is pretty interesting.
What is something that if you see it in the opening 3 to 15 seconds of a podcast will make you immediately tune out?
A teaser.
Explain what do you mean by that?
So a lot of, and this is, you asked me, so I'm answering as me, not as the market or what I think is right for you. When there's a podcast and it goes, I was broke, I'm living on the side of the road. And then there's a guy and then he goes, but then I sold it for $1 million and then, I'm out, dude.
So
like this isn't a trailer. Yeah. It's I don't listen to that. It's not because I'm not here to watch a movie. I'm here for the information. Please begin. Just start the freaking thing. This guy's already famous. Like, why do we need to sell his life story? Like, So for me personally, if I see the teaser, of course, I'm not turned off from the episode. I just skip it because I don't need to be sold. I'm a human. I can figure out if this is good or not I don't know if a podcast is good until the end. So the teaser's not going to get me to listen to it or watch it, me personally, because that's the book cover. How many times? I mean, I just downloaded a book I've never heard of before, and I didn't know it was a New York Times bestseller until I finished it. How was I supposed to know if it was going to be good until I read it?
That's
So
really interesting.
That's where I'm
That's
at.
really
That's
interesting
where I'm at.
because like I do a teaser on every episode.
I've done them before many, many times. I think they work. I just hate them.
Got it. So it's just a personal preference.
It's totally
Got
a
it.
personal preference.
Okay. All right. Got it.
My accountant does a teaser on every episode. It's about accounting. I love it. I think it's awesome that he does that, right? I'm just saying when I listen, and I think his audience loves it, to be honest. And by the way, we produce the teaser, so I have to love it. But it's just when I'm a consumer, I don't like it because it's just I do this for a living and I get what you're doing, and yeah, it's good for new audiences. It's mostly for new audiences.
Okay. Got you.
Not
All right.
me.
Okay. Noted. Noted. That's a tough one, but noted.
It's a tough one, man. I'm not saying it. Yeah.
What is something that people can do in the first, again, 10 to 20 seconds of the podcast that is going to ensure that you would listen to the entire thing?
Sure. So what I've found from other people, this is not from me, this is from people who are much better at, in this case, YouTube than I am, is what's called the packaging, right? So you have what's in the video or in the podcast, and then you have the wrapping paper. Then you have the box, right? Those don't have to be the same thing. Now, meaning what is happening is you just need it to be accurate. Mr. Beast does cure 1,000 people's blindness, but you don't know how he does it until you get into it. What if maybe he's magic and he snaps his fingers and they're cured? That doesn't matter. They're selling you on the curing the blindness. They're not selling you on how they do it. That's what you get when you open the box. So when it comes to the first 20 seconds, you actually don't need to tell me you don't need to be that direct, right? But I just need to know if this is worth my time. So I don't care how you can get creative with it. But what I see a lot of people do in the first 20 seconds is introduce themselves, start talking about anything, right? I want to see a clear line from title, thumbnail to the beginning of the video, right? Back to my point about the intros. Just begin, but just tell me what I'm about to get, right? Just don't try to trick me. That's really what it is. That's really what I'm saying is like, I'm not dumb. Like, I don't need to be tricked. Just tell me, right? Tell me now how you lay it out. That I don't need to know that. I don't want you to show me the movie in the trailer. I don't want you to show me the end of the movie, but I want to know what this movie's about. I want to know if it's a rom-com.
Yeah, which is why I feel like the trailers work for that. That's what the trailers do.
There's conflicting. Like, I don't want a trailer, but I also want to know what I'm getting. So, right?
Interesting.
I wish I had answers for stuff. That's the thing is, I've been doing this for a long time, and I don't because it's about what works.
Sure.
I'm not the fucking guy. I just help you figure out your answer. My client came to us the other day, and he goes, I don't like the intro for my podcast. Okay, why? Well, because I feel like it doesn't represent my show. Okay, why? Well, I could just tell him to do a teaser and call it a day, but that's not what he wants. I want to figure out why he doesn't like it.
Of course.
So then we can make something better. So it is, when we work with people, it's totally different for everybody, right?
Okay, got you. Joe Rogan's podcasts are like 3 hours long. Should a B2B podcast like have a limit?
Probably, because it's not that interesting.
I mean, we can't be talking for like nobody's gonna listen to somebody for 3 hours.
Yeah, but somebody might, but that's a thing. So
very few.
Listen, this is a question. It has to be as long as it needs to be to get through the information. But Joe Rogan's podcast is not about information. It's caught, not taught, right? You listen to 3 hours and you catch a couple things. That's how it works. It's background music. You're not active. You're not actively participating, right?
Right.
So you have background music and you only pay attention when it's a song you know, right? So Rogan's podcast is a cultural podcast that is background music where you catch a couple things by the end of the episode, where you fall in love with the guest, or you love one or two stories, right? Whereas a B2B podcast about financial wealth management there's not much being caught there, right? You're probably going in for some sort of information, right? So it's just two different mindsets. I listened to two Bob's podcast to learn about employee succession planning and how to think about that. I listened to Joe Rogan because I want to see if I like this comedian or not. I've listened to I've seen a couple clips. Okay, let's see if I actually like them. It's not really much else mindset going on there.
Yeah, got it. And that's more of like, I'm going to watch it in the background kind of thing, as opposed to like another podcast where it's like, no, I'm putting on this podcast for a very specific reason because I want to learn this information, right? I got you.
Yeah, I'm listening to, how to increase your close rate by 30% because that's what I want to learn how to do. Like that could be an Alex Hormozi podcast, right?
I can tell you how to do that immediately right now. Video testimonials.
Yeah, boom. There you go. But
Video
so you make an episode going how to increase your close rate by 30%, and then in the episode you go, here's how you do the video testimonials. Now I didn't watch that because I want to learn something about Danny. I watched it because I want to learn how to do that.
All right, next episode, how to increase your close rate by 30% in the next 90 days using video testimonials. That's the
I love it. I love it.
Man. All right, Ryan, it was good to see you, man. Always. Give people a little bit about like where they can find you.
Yeah, sure. So Ryan R. Sullivan, use the R. By the way, if you do Ryan Sullivan, I am on page 2 of Google now, so I'm working on that. That's been a 26 going on 27-year journey. So Ryan R. Sullivan, just Google that. I'll come up with the R. That's my YouTube channel. That's my LinkedIn, and one of the most creative podcast names in the world called The Ryan Sullivan Show, if you want to check that out. And then if you find my Instagram account, my personal Instagram, then you can see me rapping. You can see me wake surfing and falling off that board, or you can,
you play guitar. You do that
I play guitar. I DJ. DJ some weddings on there. So yeah, if you find that, that's kind of the catch-all.
You are a man of many talents. All right. What's the best place for people to reach out to you though? LinkedIn?
Oh, absolutely. LinkedIn. It's the it is my savior. It is. This is crazy that this is our life, but this is where we are. But no, I post every day. Everything that I do and we do for podcasts and for businesses is out there for you on LinkedIn and on our YouTube channel. We don't hold anything back. And if you need custom one-on-one help, then we're here if you need it. But everything's out there. Go for it. Go record a podcast, have fun, and make some money in the meantime.
Beautiful. All right, love it, man. I will see you. And thank you for helping me set this podcast up, because this podcast wouldn't exist without your input. So I appreciate you, man. I will catch you again. You'll come back and hang out again sometime, all right?
I'd love to, man. Thank you, Danny.